Hi folks! Before we actually go into the video proper, I just wanted to share something with you real quick. You might hear Fred in the back. He's a little bit whiny boy this morning. But had a few people ask about the lighting in this room and why it has sort of this weird green tint. That's intentional. Mrs. Brainger found something really cool. It is a migraine relief light bulb. And it actually does have a green tint. I will say that since I've been using these light bulbs, this is not product endorsement or anything, but since I have been using these light bulbs, it really has cut down on my headaches, and that could potentially go into a migraine or a flare. But yeah, you can get these on Blamazon. Some of them are singular, some are in packs. But yeah, go to Amazon and you might be able to find them. They're really worth. And remember, Cramazon. So anyways, that being said, let's go to the video. Hello there. Brainger Ron here, your personal tour guide as we head down that path of life called Trigeminal Neuralgia. I need to apologize that I haven't been able to post anything for quite a while. The summer weather really got to me pretty bad. We also had bad air quality index, had several scares in the family, and sadly we had a loss in the family as well. So I was occupied, to say the least. Today's video is from a viewer request. In fact, it is the very first request I had, and it was one of the more difficult to try to formulate up here, quite personal. The request comes from Dr. Sam Webster, who is a professor of anatomy in the university in Wales. And he wants to know a little bit about the progression of symptoms that I had as going back to when it all began. Got that first flare and kind of what is going on now after surgery and all of that. So before I actually get into my symptoms and all of that, there's a couple things that I need to address. One, not all people with trigeminal neuralgia are the same. And what I mean by that is we have this incredible nerve that's going through the entire side of your face. And depending on where that injury is to the nerve, you will feel different things at different intensities. As case in point, all three of the branches of my trigeminal nerve are injured. And with that, I have the pain, discomfort up here, here, and in here. And when it comes to my teeth, yeah, I do have some tooth pain. Back molars, both above and below. But for me, that pain is, well, it's a regular toothache. And does it bother me? Yes. Does it hurt? Yes. But it is not the main pain that I have. But on the other side of that, there are individuals who have that tooth pain, and it's one of their major, if not the major pain that they're going through. The pain can be so severe for them that they will take the operative and remove all of their teeth in hopes of things getting better. Yeah, my heart goes out to them. So yeah, you can say trigeminal neuralgia, but there's all these different places where it can be the main pain. 2, pain. There's a lot of different types of pain that we go through. Just all depends on the location. What I feel here is not what I feel here, or here, or here, or here. When I go to the neurologist, there's a checkbox that we work on to describe what kind of pain we're going through. Is it a dull pain? Is it a sharp pain? Is it a piercing pain? Is it a throbbing pain? Is it this kind of pain and that kind of pain and that kind of pain? Well, depending on where I'm feeling, it's a different sensation. And I joke with my neurologist and say, at the bottom of this giant thesaurus of different types of pain descriptions, you need to put in just a little teeny tiny box that we can check off for trigeminal neuralgia folks. All of the above. So, yeah. The tooth pain, cheek pain, ears, eyes, head, all different sensations. And we'll talk about that. 3. For 3, we are not like superhumans, all right? But we have a very personal history with pain. And it's not that we get used to this kind of pain. It's just that we know what a trigeminal neuralgia flare is. I mean, again, going back to that checklist, there's also another checklist. How are you feeling from 0 to 10? Well, for those of us with trigeminal neuralgia, we know what a 10 is. And because of that, when we are feeling something else that isn't that 10 for trigeminal neuralgia, we can kind of put that down as, like a 5, maybe a 6. And this is why I'm so fortunate to have Mrs. Brainger with me, because when the neurologist or our general doctor asks, how are you feeling? And I can say, well, I'm at a 4, 5. And then Mrs. Brainger will interrupt and say, okay, that's TN 4 or 5. For the normal people without this, my 4 or 5 could easily be a 7. So, yeah, we look at pain a little bit differently. Ours is very intimate. Not to put down anybody else's pain. Pain is pain. It's just the severity of it. So, all right, let's talk about symptoms. I cannot speak for the rest of the TN community, but for me, the symptoms came on very slow and gradual. And we're talking years before my first flare. And I really couldn't tell if it was trigeminal neuralgia. I didn't even know what trigeminal neuralgia was, because these things were kind of separated from each other. I talked about the tooth pain. Every now and then, I would have, this pain, my back molars. And I had a bad molar, and sadly, it had to be taken out. And, I just have like this pain every now and then, burn, this toothache. And I was just like, look in there. It's like a ghost pain because it's, tooth isn't there. Got the gums checked out, and they're like, nah, you're fine. It's just kind of one of those weird pains you feel. Okay. And then I would have the cheek and the forehead. Those kind of happen at the same time. And, before I was Brainger Ron, I was Ranger Ron, park ranger. And with those big flat hats that we wear, they're for show. They're an identifier. I'm very proud to wear those hats. And sorry, I got a plane above me. It's actually raining, so if my phone gets way too wet, we'll just, put a pause and go somewhere else. But yeah, the ranger hat. One common thing that all rangers have when it comes to that flat hat is a sore forehead. The inside of the rim of those ranger hats is leather, and as you sweat, that leather will kind of shrink. So after a while, you'll kind of get like this little mark, maybe a little burn up there too. And we just don't think about it. So I kind of had a burn up there. I'm like, all right, time to change out my hat. Another sort of job hazard that we run into is sunburn. Even with those hats, we can still get sunburn on our face, or windburn. And I did that. I was a park ranger 28 years, so Did a lot of standing outside in the majority of my years. Last few years, I was kind of tucked behind a computer in the office. Sad to say, the more up you go, the more wide you become, more sedentary you become. But yeah, I started getting this pain in my cheek, and I was like, well, it's not a bad pain. It's just a little burn, and didn't really pay much attention to it. And put on some sunburn cream or aloe vera, something like that, and just didn't think twice about it. It started progressing, and there'd be times where a burn was just insane. I'd lay over, and it's like, wow. Not realizing that here and here there were trigger points, and we were in those early days of you know of the nerve kind of getting wore down. It hadn't broken through the myelin sheath, BoBo, my cause of my TN and my TN pain. If you're unfamiliar with BoBo, let's go back to episode 1. You'll figure it out. But yeah, BoBo hadn't cut through the myelin sheath just yet. So it was getting irritated. I feel this burn. There's no problem. I didn't mention the more up you go, the more sedentary you become. My eyes started hurting. And I was just thinking, all right, I'm sitting in front of the computer too long. I kind of get this pain in my eye socket. And yeah, there's going to be another Goldie passing here in a second. Pretty dog. Put it on a leash. Put it on a leash. Put your dog on a leash. Yeah, once a ranger, always a ranger. But yeah, I was the trigger spots started developing. We're talking years and years and years. And we're talking 7, 8, 10 years before. Because again, this is a job hazard. You always get those burns. And yeah, there'd be times I'd brush up against my forehead here, and it would be a little bit more intense pain, a burn pain. Sometimes that burn would turn into a sizzle. Well, that's weird. And again, with the computer, I have eyeglasses, and there'd be times I'd be sitting in front of the computer, and my right eye would just start hurting. And we get that sharp pain in the socket all the way through. I was thinking, well, yeah, I need to walk away from the computer. Maybe I need new eyeglasses. Been staring at the screen so long, because there'd be times I'd be staring at the screen 2-3 hours a day, if not longer. So yeah, it caused some pain. A lot of pressure. My sinuses would start, feeling like a hand just gently pushing down on my sinuses and my eye socket, my cheek. I am prone for sinus infections and ear infections. In fact, prior to having tubes put in and a sinusoplasty, to help drain my upper sinuses, I would get sinus infections, ear infections, twice a year minimum. I could feel them coming on. I would go to my general doctor or my ENT, and they go, "Yep, you got a sinus infection. Here's some pills. Take them. You'll be fine in a couple of days." And then I would start getting headaches, and a couple were migraines. I didn't realize at the time I had vestibular migraines. I've talked about that once or twice before. But that is another thing about people with trigeminal neuralgia. It's not just trigeminal neuralgia. Usually we have sort of a companion neurological issue to go on up there. Overachievers, I say that all the time. But yeah, I didn't know that I had vestibular migraines. So, I get these pressures and I get headaches, feel a little dizzy. I'm thinking, all right, it's my ears, my sinuses acting up. Had tubes put in, that helped out a lot. But every now and then I would get them. I'd take up some decongestants and be fine. And none of this was associated with each other. There was really no, aha moment where all of a sudden they just tied in together until shortly after my 50th birthday. In fact, about 2 days after my 50th birthday, we were in Scotland, so great place. Want to go back again sometime. But yeah, 2 days after my birthday in Scotland, I got a cold. Man, really bad sinuses. I was sniffling all the time. was able to get some decongestions, and it helped out, but I still kind of had that pressure, and then pressure in the sinuses, pressure in the eye. And the night before we flew back, I lost hearing in my right ear. Not necessarily saying that that's trigeminal neuralgia related. It could have been the vestibular migraine related. Don't know. And right now we're shooting for vestibular migraines because my hearing is bad, very bad. But we flew home. I got into my ENT, and I was showing the signs, sinus infections. My face would feel all swollen. I was squinting. Light became very, very sensitive. Always had light sensitive eyes, which was great when I would do like astronomy programs. It would start getting dark. I could look and say, "Everybody see that star?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Really? It's right there." Very light sensitive. But yeah, bright light, bright sunlight, directly looking into the sunlight, fluorescent light. That's really still my bad trigger. They all started. All this started happening at the same time. I'd have this pressure, this pain in my eye, my cheek. Let's get back to my cheek. That burn really started intensifying. And to understand that pain, that symptom, and I still have it today, I would feel like the muscles tightening. And there'd be sort of like an electric feel inside my mouth and on my cheek. Go get yourself some sour candy. All right, the most sour candy you can find. And put it back there, back molar between your cheek and gum. Just think about that. And that sour candy is just, yeah, you're going to salivate and all that other stuff. But that tingly, twisty feeling, yeah, that's what I started to feel. And then it really started intensifying. Getting sour candy in the back of your mouth. Smile. And I don't mean a little, I mean teeth, ear to ear, Cheshire cat grin. I used to speak for a living. Scary. But yeah, you're smiling ear to ear, and hold that smile. Just hold it. That's all you got to do. Hold it for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and you'll start feeling that burn, that tingly feeling. That's what I was feeling here in my cheek. Eyes sensitive to light. Yeah, I'd look up and I'd get this little flash of pain in my eyes. Still not a flare yet, right? Still not a flare. We're at the ENT. We're thinking, all right, sinus infection, ear infection. You can't hear. He had done a sinusoplasty on me. I mentioned that before, and I felt the same way. And he goes, "Well, let's go in there. We'll take a look." And he took a look and he says, "It doesn't look that bad. Let's get a CAT scan." I mean, he has to get a CAT scan anyways for insurance. It isn't like, "Oh yeah, I think you got this. Let's get the knife out and knock you out." So yeah, CAT scan. Did the CAT scan. Came back a couple of days later, and by this time I'm just miserable. Just. I'd already missed a couple of days of work. When I was there, it was very difficult to function. Couldn't hear, couldn't see the computer screen, getting a little wobbly on my feet. Comes back with a CAT scan. Didn't see anything. For folks with trigeminal neuralgia, that's one of the most disheartening things that we hear. Couldn't find anything, didn't see anything. And yet we're in this tremendous vat of pain. All these different types of pain we get. The burn, the tingly, inside, the toothache, the headache from the eyes, looking at the screen too long. And like, something's wrong. And my ENT said, possibility it might be a neuralgia of some sort. And he said, perhaps on the trigeminal nerve. Doesn't know. He's an ENT. He's not going to diagnose, stuff for a neurologist. And he said trigeminal neuralgia, and I was like, trigemini cricket? All right. Yeah. We set up an appointment for the neurologist, and as is the case with neurologist and really any other specialist. They just like, oh yeah, come on in. We'll see you right now. It was a 3-month wait. And as the weeks started progressing, it was getting worse and worse and worse. Everything on the side of my face just started hurting. I was getting no relief. The pain was going from a sear to a char in my cheek. My eyes, I was squinting like Popeye. I could not see out of it. Otherwise, I'd have these flashes of pain. I couldn't look at a computer screen. It was just, even today, I look at a computer screen, my eyes just roll. And a couple weeks after, or a couple weeks before my visit to the neurologist, I had my first flare. Also had my first vestibular migraine flare at the same time. In fact, they feed off each other. And it started, I was at work, it started as a vestibular migraine. And eyes sensitive, world spinning, temples throbbing. Started throwing up, violently throwing up. I could not stop throwing up. And as I'm face forward, my head in the bucket, just throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. Whatever remnant of the myelin sheath that was sitting on my trigeminal nerve finally got worn off. And that's when the pain really hit. So I actually had a twofer that day, vestibular migraine and the trigeminal neuralgia flare. BoBo's coming out party.
Hello, everyone.
Screw you, BoBo. In my first video, I said there are a lot of people out there that can talk about this pain in a lot more dignified way than I can, and I still hold to that. But I will say, and I don't want to get too graphic, it was like this impressive weight just pushing down, just, and then my face just blowing off, the whole side of my head. It was intense. As such, between that and the vestibular migraine, spinning, throwing up, my nervous system went into overload. It didn't know what to do. My blood pressure spiked, dropped, spiked, dropped, spiked, dropped. I'm having a cardiac issue. Make things even more interesting, I became diaphoretic. Now, in a ranger field, we are trained to look for certain symptoms. And the thing that scares me the most, always scared me the most, was seeing somebody become diaphoretic. Basically, every pore in my body opened up, and I started sweating, and I could not stop sweating. This is a sign, again, blood pressure up, blood pressure down, blood pressure up. So it's a 4 for now. A couple months later, when I had a specialized MRI, Fiesta MRI done, the neurosurgeon looked and said, "Oh yeah, you know what that is?" "No." "Well, you had an aneurysm." And I'm like, "Really? That's not fun." And with everything else that I had, the neurologist and the neurosurgeon just like, "Don't worry about it." And I'm thinking, all the things screwed up in my head when they're looking at this explosion I had in my head, little explosion, and they're saying, "Don't worry about it." Not gonna worry about it. Not gonna worry about it. But yeah, diaphoretic. I was ambulanced, got to the emergency ward. I was I was in very bad shape. Sweating, head's exploding, the world's spinning, still throwing up. They did another CAT scan, couldn't find anything. I did mention to them, I might have this kind of neuralgia. And they said, "Well, that would do it." I was released late in the afternoon the next day because I was just wiped out. I weighed myself. Mrs. Brainger can attest to this. I lost 8 pounds that day from sweating, throwing up, whatever. Of course, the hospital, they're just pumping me full of IVs, one right after the other. But yeah, 8 pounds. That's a gallon. Yeah, that's a lot of body fluids. From that moment on, all the way up to the surgery, things really started worsening, almost day to day, minute by minute. My cheek, my forehead, extreme trigger spots. The burn would always stay, and I had to be very careful. If I gently touched it, or a puff of wind, or a temperature, it would send me into an instant flare. There's one part of the flare that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's the zaps. I want you to think about the last time you banged your elbow on something, funny bone. You kind of get that electrical discharge feeling going up and down your arm. For those with TN, I'm not comparing, I'm not trying to say that that's what it feels like. But for those who bang their elbow or their knee and they kind of feel that electrical jolt just run through the nerves of your arm, that's kind of how the pain transfers for me. And it comes right up behind the eye, around the temple area. And you can feel this electrical surge just radiating through every single little branch of the nerve. It's overwhelming. Now, with that electrical shock, it's not like when you bang your elbow, multiply that by a factor of, I don't know, 100, and that's not an exaggeration. The nerve has been rubbed raw, something's going up against it, and the nerve is reacting with this searing pain. It's extraordinary. Please check with others. They can probably be a little bit more detailed on that. Yeah, it's bad. I was rated as extreme, due in part because of the vestibular migraines and the fact that when I was throwing up so much, BoBo he dug right into the nerve. When they had the surgery, my nerve was pretty much hamburger. Still is, hasn't really healed up that much. But it has healed up to a point where I can do certain things. It got to a point I was having zaps every few minutes. And in between the zaps, you just have this sheer wall of pain that you're running into. And literally just bang your face up against a wall just over and over and over again. I couldn't move. Every time I would turn my head, it would provoke a flare. Every time I bend over, it would provoke a flare. I still have to be very, very careful bending over. The dishwasher is the bane of my existence. I still do it just to prove that I'm, I wouldn't say as smart as a dishwasher because I'm still bending over and flaring, but is one of my main obstacles. I want to bend over, get that dish, put it away, get a dirty dish, put it back in. My wife has to be very careful when I do dishes. I know she keeps an eye out and kind of looks in the kitchen. Honey, are you okay? We do become very agitated with this pain. I was still trying to go to work after my first flare. I was very unsuccessful at it, but I still tried. And when I was there, I got to be very grumpy. And this is actually leading up before the flare, too. And my role was sort of in a leadership / mentorship position. And it's very hard when your leader and your mentor is just being grumpy all the time, especially when they know before, I'd be all perky-worky. I was the guy that, if somebody was having a bad day, I would perk them up. First thing they would do is when they'd come in the morning, make them laugh. Last thing that I made certain I did before they left, make them laugh. Yeah, those days were gone. Very grumpy. Um, yeah, the between the zaps and the triggers, uh, it got really bad those last few months before the surgery. Like I said, couldn't speak. The vibration of my voice would carry up my jawline into my temple. Try it. If you have like one of those really tired voices, you'll feel that vibration, and that vibration alone would set off a flare. Um, there were many physical tells that I had to let folks know. I call it TN face, and for those with TN face, they know what it is. So I still have it. Um, there are folks when they have a flare, they're able to vocalize, scream the pain out. When you get hurt, you can go ouch, and maybe make a noise, cuss, whatever. When we're getting into a flare or having a trigger, it can get so bad that we don't even try to move our face. We can't, because we know as soon as we do move our face, any of the muscles, the cheek, the eyes, whatever, it can make things worse. So Mrs. Brainger, she's much better at picking up on my visual cues than I am. I am on some great medication now. Doesn't get rid of TN, but it helps me manage it a lot better. And I'm actually going to do that in the next video. It's an infusion drug called Vyepti. But yeah, it was bad. Sunlight, touch, movement, position. It was, once you have that first flare, everything with all those different unique pains hit all at once. And yeah, it's tough. After the surgery, I did see a lot of marked improvement. My hearing came back for a little while, then it's again gone. The trigger spot up here, pretty much done. Trigger spot on my cheek, still there, and I still get the gumball tingle, twisty. Um, if I'm not too careful, that will kind of go up into my eye. But I don't have zaps that much anymore, and that's for me is a win. I get very fatigued, very tired. I get confused sometimes, and this is really through the whole run of trigeminal neuralgia. And when I say I'm confused, it isn't like, what's my name? What's the date? How do I drive a car? Not that confused. It's one of those, where did I put my car keys? If you know that feeling, you just walk around, it's like, you have that little bit of a fog. You can still have coherent thoughts, but you're kind of in that little bit of confusion, that daze. That's us, 24/7. We're in pain 24/7. It's just, what type of pain? We've learned to adjust to certain types of pain. It's not, again, we're not superheroes, but we can smile through the pain. If we're going to hurt, we might as well laugh. So that was my little journey down trigeminal neuralgia. I hope it has helped. If there's anything I missed, please comment down there. I know there's a lot of folks with trigeminal neuralgia who's probably watched this, and they've done a lot of shaking of their heads. No, I don't mean like that, the agreement stuff. I can shake my head from side to side. Don't ask me to nod my head, yes, because it's not good. And for those with TN who are nodding their heads, stop it. Stop it. You know what happens. Still love you guys, though. So anyways, I'm in the rain. I really need to get out of the rain. I look forward to hearing from you. If this is your first time to the channel, hey, if you like what you see, thumbs up, maybe subscribe. I want to get the word out about trigeminal neuralgia. And hopefully, some of these paths that we have, we can all converge and walk together. So, laugh when you can. Smile even more. I love you all. Except you, BoBo. Screw you, BoBo. Screw you.